Olha o contra-ataque aí. Vem que vem o time avançando rápido pela linha de campo. Bola dominada no pé do camisa 10. Ele vai pra cima, passou pelo primeiro, passou pelo segundo. Invadiu a grande área, vai chutar. Bateu, é gol! Que golaço, minha gente!
A experiência de futebol mais autêntica já criada para os games. Junte-se no 5x5 Rush, a nova maneira de jogar com os amigos e leve seu clube para a vitória. EA Sports FC 25. Dê tudo pelo clube. Já disponível.
Não é tempo técnico, mas é intervalo aqui no podcast. Já imaginou se seu time tivesse um seguro para não perder nunca? Pois é, isso não existe. Mas com a Zurich Seguros, quem não perde nunca é você. Na Zurich Seguros, os planos se adequam às suas necessidades em qualquer momento da sua vida. Seja seguro de auto, residência, vida e muito mais. Diferente de alguns times, na Zurich Seguros você pode confiar. Para saber mais, acesse zurich.com.br ou consulte seu corretor.
I think one of the rabbit holes you can go down, right, especially when maybe if you're having some success at times, is you can start to, late in the season, like, I don't want to say get bored, right, but you can add some things. You can start to essentially kind of get in your own way.
On this episode of Coach and Coordinator, we focus on the late season push, and joining us to discuss these topics is Tom Perkovich, the head coach at Susquehanna University. We focus on some of his late season strategies, discussing player focus through consistent practice routines and balancing intensity with recovery. Stay tuned for our Winning Edge takeaway following the episode.
Meu nome é Cairo Santos e eu sou kicker e único brasileiro jogando na NFL. Cada chute, cada jarda conquistada, cada passo me levou para mais perto dos meus sonhos. Agora, a cada R$200 em compras com seu Visa cadastrado, você tem a chance de ficar mais perto do sonho de assistir ao Super Bowl 59. E usando o seu cartão de débito, você ainda concorre a prêmios diários de até R$1.000. Não importa o tamanho do seu sonho, dê o primeiro passo. Visa, apoiando seus passos aonde você quiser chegar.
As we head into the late season, we want to focus on things like staying in the moment, but also think about how we're developing our players for the future and how we need to adjust things as we're going through these late stages of the season. And joining me to discuss that today is the head coach at Susquehanna, Tom Perkovich. Coach, great to have you here on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Keith. Appreciate it.
You guys had an incredible year in 2023, and you've had an incredible tenure at Susquehanna, and certainly have learned things along the way. And we want to pick your brain today about just some ideas on things that we can do to really keep our team focused, staying in the moment, performing as we want, continuing to grow here in the late season. And I think it starts with that idea of stay in the moment. So when you look at that, what kind of things are you guys doing to make sure these guys stay focused on what they need and maybe not look ahead to potentially big games or even the playoffs?
Well, I think our approach is trying to be really consistent. How we're operating in meetings, the daily schedule, the way we're operating in the weight room. I think that's the things that you can really keep grounded. You're not changing practice a ton, but you're keeping guys focused on what we're doing, and the preparation is staying the same as it was the first number of weeks. So I think that if you stay consistent, I think the players will mentally stay consistent, stay in the moment. And obviously your coach has got to handle all that stuff well, and your strength staff and all that. If they're doing that and they're keeping the message the way it should be, then I really think that your players will stay where they need to. They'll stay grounded. And, you know, at that time of the year, every game's big, no matter who you're playing. So just keep continuing to remind them of that and the goals that you may have set through that year or for that week. I think keeps guys right where you want them.
When you're looking at the specifics of what you guys are doing in the weight room, doing on the practice field, you want the consistency, but you're also looking at workload and what you guys are doing there. And you don't want to maintain by any means. That's not the objective. But what kinds of things specifically are you looking at for weight room and practice in terms of managing that load?
Yeah, I think when you're talking to your strength staff, I think it's just about the volume that you're asking them to do that week, or where they're at in their plan comparative to where you're at in your plan. Or is it a max week? Is it a, high week? Is it a deload week? You kind of got to plan that out. I think And that obviously starts preseason, but especially that time of year, depending on your injuries, as you talk to the trainers on where are your best players at, how do they feel? And I think that that's big for you to make sure that you can get your guys to Saturday, right? We say, I don't care about winning Tuesday and Wednesday. I care about winning on Saturday. So you got to be smart as a coach and a coaching staff and the group that how do we get these guys to Saturday? So the volume of practice reps, maybe it's lessening some things. Maybe it's less individual, or maybe you're cutting reps here a couple of times here or there in scout teams for guys. And I think as long as you can do that and maybe give them to a guy who could be the next guy or could get him ready or help you, your age of your players is going to matter a little bit too down the stretch, but to keep them sharp, I think is big. But it's about the volume, I think, of how long's practice, how many reps are you getting in each period? Are you getting guys enough to get them ready for Saturday, but not putting them in harm's way in a time of year where an injury could kill you at certain positions? So I think it's just looking at it and managing it and being smart, but also keeping them sharp.
Yeah, I know one of the things you do, as you mentioned to me before we got going, to keep them sharp is you still like the good versus good reps within practice. What do those sessions look like for you? How much of you good on good do you do?
Well, so just to break it down a little bit is we may do like a run emphasis period early in practice. And the way we structure it is it could be like, hey, it's going to be 10 plays for the offense. The offense is up and the defense is going to service the offense and run whatever the defense is. Now we try to keep it as similar as we can. So our defense is going to run maybe some things they run that we do that the opponent may do. Not the one-offs. So we're trying to eliminate the cards as much as we can in that period. But it might be, hey, every 2 or 3 plays, we're going to rotate. So 2s may go out there against our 1 defense. Our 1s may go against our 2 defense from a service standpoint. And then we'll get the 3s and 4s some reps in there too. So really everyone's getting reps. It's minimal. I'm an offensive line coach. For us, a lot of times it's about assignment, right? Getting guys aligned in the picture and executing that. But from a defensive standpoint, as a defensive coach, I think to see how the plays are going to fit in the run game, having some better looks against better offensive line, I think just helps you, especially early in the week, to see what they're doing and what their run schemes are, and having a better O-line give you a better look, I think can help you those fits. So we've done that. In 7-on-7 or scale period, they're going to be similar to that, where we're rolling everybody through, but we're getting some reps against good people. And then each day, Keith, what we do is every day, and it's a different emphasis every day, but we do an 8-play true good versus good competition period. And that's some of the energy is unbelievable in practice, which is fun, where we go 4 plays for the 1s versus the 1s and 4 plays 2s versus the 2s. We play for up downs. It might be normal on Tuesday because that's our emphasis. Hey, we're looking to get 4 yards, win first down, right? Try to obviously keep us away from that defensively. And then we start to get into 3rd downs, mostly mediums on Wednesday, medium, maybe a throw along in there. And then Thursday, it's similar 3rd downs because you got to be good on 3rd down. And that, if you look at our history here, is we've been pretty dang good on that down. And it's because we practice it, I think, and put emphasis on it. So some of those periods have really helped us continue to keep the edge of that sword sharp, keep our guys sharp, but also give us the looks that we need to prepare for Saturday. And we still have scout periods where our younger developmental players get done. That's been good for us. But I think some of that good versus good scout, I'll call it, or the true competition every day, just it keeps that fire burning and keeps guys focused.
When you're looking at those good periods, logistically, how are you putting it together? Are your coordinators sitting down and scripting it together? Or are you saying, hey, here's the things that we do similar to them, and here's the things that you do, and go ahead and call them during that period? What's the best way, do you feel?
Yeah, we get together with the staffs. We say, hey, what are the things that they do that are similar to what we do, or we can call in our terminology that our players can run and not take a ton of time, right? Showing them a card or showing them that. And be honest, some weeks are easier than others. Some weeks it's harder, but we try to do our best in those to do that. But we talk across the ball. And the way we've done it here is like our defense breaks down people in our offensive terminology from a like formation standpoint and scheme standpoint. Even our coaches are talking to our kids talking in what we call our language. And so that's been helpful. It's not the defense calling 3-by-1 open trio and offense calling it whatever. We're all talking on the same language when we're talking at least formations. So that helps us. And then, hey, as a coach gets feet underneath him in our program, that's going to help. He's going to know what to call it. Maybe the first weeks of the year, it's going to be, hey, coach, what are you calling this? Or what do we do? And that's time well spent, in my opinion, to get practice run well. In the end, like for our younger kids, when they get in there, you're almost stealing reps, right? I mean, you're stealing a rep of a play we run or a version of something we run. So that's been helpful for us from a management standpoint.
As we hit this late part of the season, looking at what you do and you coordinate the offense, you work with the offensive line. I mean, self-scout is still really important here. You're going to know what's been working well, but you're in a situation, some big games coming up. You want to make sure you hang your hat on some of those things, but at the same time, know maybe here's a few things we need to consider. You don't want to be underprepared. How do you balance that? And what's the approach in which you're taking with the self-scout and looking at where things go next for you?
Yeah, I think week to week, we're always looking at what are the best things we're doing in the run game offensively? What are the best things we're doing in the pass game? How are we protecting the quarterback? Are we having issues there or not? What do we need to maybe look at adding or emphasizing in practice more? I think one of the rabbit holes you can go down, right, especially when maybe if you're having some success at times, is you can start to late in the season, like, I don't want to say get bored, right, but you can add some things. You can start to essentially kind of get in your own way, right? We all like to follow Twitter. We like to see this new thing here or there. And sometimes you can go down some roads you don't need to. And I've seen that. Or you're playing a better opponent and you think that we should add this against this and do this. And I think that's detrimental. I've done that in my career, 20 plus years, and it's usually never worked out well. I think you are who you are by you get to that end of that time of the year. I think it's just how you present the things you do well, right? Maybe change formation, you motion, you move around. But hey, we're running duo really well, or we're running outside zone really well. Why are we looking at adding one back power? Why are we spending reps on that? Or probably already have that in our offense, but you know what I mean by that. Like, I think you can go down some roads or pass game wise as you see something new and you're like, well, I think we can exploit it this way or that way. Well, you probably have 3 or 4 things you already know and your players know, because again, they don't live it, right? They got class every day. The academic load is getting harder as you go through the year, especially at a place like ours, right? So you're coming out of midterms at this time, right? You're getting into second half of the semester. The pressure's up for some of the kids. And so you got to be conscious of that. We can sit there and add, but it's not preseason. It's not the time we had. So I just always try to keep us, grounded if I see something new on a script or we're having the conversation's really long about something that we were thinking about adding. It's probably not great. Probably just wasting time. So we try to move on. And unless it's something we think can be a difference maker down the stretch, that's one thing. There's been some instances where you're saying, hey, we're going to add this during the bye week, but we know that we're going to hold it in our pocket, but we feel like we can get weeks and weeks of reps at it. We're going to hold it in our pocket for whoever we're playing. I think that's a different plan than trying to be in the moment, adding something for 1 week. So just trying to keep yourself grounded, look at what you're doing well. Sometimes the averages of what you're doing per run can get you really thinking per pass scheme or per protection. And we're always looking at that at ourselves as much as we are looking at the opponent to make sure we're calling the things that our kids are obviously know well and are executing well.
Yeah, those repetitions are key. I agree with you 100%. And you brought up the bye week. And last year, 2023, you had a week 10 college season in Division III being 11 weeks, a week 10 bye week. So late season bye week. What's the approach there? Because we're talking about staying focused, staying in the moment, keeping some of that momentum, and then there's a pause there. So what's the approach to those late week bye weeks, late season bye weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it was the first time we've ever had anything like that. In my other years, we had a common bye week, right, for the whole conference. I think what we tried to do was, I want to say we maybe watched Saturday's game on Monday. We took Tuesday off. We just lifted. try to get some good lifting in. I think that was a part of the focus, recovery, and get our guys going that needed that, and continue to take care of the developmental guys on cranking them up in the weight room. Came out on Wednesday and Thursday, and we got some reps for the top group, but I'll be honest, it was pretty minimal after 9 straight weeks of playing and a bunch of road games. We had 6 road games last year, and they were all before the bye. So we started with 3 road games and overnights and all that. So, we just try to do that, give them some more time to take care of their academics. And then we definitely spent a good chunk of that time during the bye week with our developmental group. We did a good amount of scrimmaging with those guys, thud, but staying on our feet. But the intensity's up on Wednesday for 30, 40 minutes. And then on Thursday, same thing before we broke for the kind of the weekend and gave them some time off. And I gave our staff some time too. That was critical, I think. But the development of your younger players at that time of the year and keeping them engaged, I think, is critical to the growth of a program. And keeping guys and evaluating them and retention and all those things that we all talk about at our level. I think it also helps you evaluate who's figuring it out, who could be that last guy on the bus for the playoffs or whatever the next week if you're on the road. We talk about player development here all the time, and I think that's what's kept us pretty consistent. I think one of the stats we had was we're one of 5 teams in the country to win 9 or more games the last 4 seasons. So player development's a big part of that. And we're always looking at ways to steal reps for those guys. And the bye week's a great way to do that. And I think what it does for your older guys or your starters is they're there to kind of help those guys right on the sideline. We talk to those guys about being coaches and help them out and be in their ear on what they should be doing or what they should be looking at. And it can create some team too, in that maybe you're looking for or maybe you need. So I think that time of year was good, but I think we gave everyone the weekend off. And then got back to work on LICO, a championship game that we had at the end of the year, who's a rivalry game for us, trophy game, as we got back together on Monday.
So that developmental group, I think that's really important. And I've noticed this from coaching at the D3 level. I think you see it now more and more at the high school level is late season. Sometimes those developmental games you have scheduled, whether it's a JV game or at the high school level, maybe it's even freshman and JV, those games start to get canceled because teams are banged up and you lose that competitive part. Now, you guys like to do some things on Thursdays with your younger guys, especially as you're heading into the late season, to make sure that they're still competing too. How important is that to make sure that not just you're getting your practice reps and we're paying attention to you, but there's that chance to compete?
It's critical. We all have those fringe kids, right? That maybe the threes that we just would love to get more reps and more evaluation and more coaching, right? Because they're not getting reps of as much of running what you run, right? They could be scout team guys, right? Or they're a package guy on defense, right? And they're only a couple reps on, Wednesdays or Thursdays for you. And I think seeing the full body and we film it when our coaches get with the kids on Fridays and meet with them and go through the film and continue to try to the mental development, right, of that on seeing who's doing well. And I think kids want to get coached, right? They want to get coached. They want to know you love them. They want to know that you care. You care about them and their development because they want to play. They all want to play. And so the more we do of that, the more they feel like we're doing that and the more they feel like they get a chance to showcase the skills that they've been working on, the things they care about and their knowledge and paying attention. I think that's critical to guys understanding that the best player will play. And that's something we've told every recruit here in my 9 years is the best players will play. And the freshmen have the hardest time because, one, they're obviously not mature as much physically, but, the mental game, right? You got to learn a whole new system, a whole new language. We ask these kids to come in preseason camp and literally learn a whole new language in 3 weeks because we don't have the summers with them. So I think the more you're doing with that, the more they feel appreciated, the more they feel cared for, and the more it helps your program too, because the further you can get them along in the season, the further they are as sophomores. And for some of them, that's where the true competition is going to come in for playing time. And I think that's helped us stay ahead of the curve.
Coach Perk, I really appreciate you giving us some insight here late season and taking some time to be with us here on the podcast. And Want to just wish you and the Riverhawks best of luck here the rest of the way.
I appreciate you having us and taking interest in our program, and need anything else, let us know.
The one thing this episode made me think of is something I would hear constantly from our defensive coordinator, Jim Meyer at BW. He'd always say, let's not sharpen the sword dull, meaning that we don't want to spend all of our energy during the week. We want our guys to be sharp. We want them out there with energy, but ultimately it's what happens on game day that matters. And Coach Perkovich mentioned things like that as well. I think the other thing that really is a takeaway for me is that you need to avoid overcomplicating things in the late season. And the tendency as we go through the season is that we can add some things because we're really good at this. And we probably should take the opposite approach. We want to remain focused on those things we're good at. We certainly want to break tendencies with some other things we have in our package. We might even want to dress things up. But what got us there so far? What's taken us to this point in the late season? If we've been successful, even if we haven't had all the success we want, there's something that we've become good at over the course of the season just through the cumulative effect of reps. So focus on those things. You don't want to overcomplicate it. Sometimes that's just the novelty of something new because we've been doing things for so long. But again, this is about the players. We don't want to confuse them, and we don't want to detract from what our core strengths are. Be sure to check out our partners, Vertical Raise, for your fundraising needs, Modern Football Technology for analytics and in-game decision-making, and Signature Championship Rings when you win the championship this year. Links and information to all of our partners can be found in the description and on coachandcoordinator.com in our 10% toolkit. Follow us on X at Coach K. Grabowski.